Hey there, welcome back to Geeky Greenhouse. Today I'm going to show you how to grow microgreens from start to finish. Now I have here the final product of the microgreens that I'm going to show you how to grow from seed. I have some various salad greens as well as radish, and I'm going to show you the entire process from the growing medium that I use, as well as how to plant the seeds, how much light they need, and how to put the weights on, how to harvest them, everything you need to know about growing microgreens at home. A lot of people mix up sprouts and microgreens, but microgreens are actually the stage of growth after sprouts and before baby greens. Microgreens are very nutrient dense, but they are very expensive to purchase at the grocery store. Luckily, the process of growing them at home is very simple, and it's a great way to keep the gardening hobby alive over the winter. So you can harvest fresh greens year-round with minimal supplies and very little effort. Now these here were planted 11 days ago, and I'm going to check in every few days to show you the whole process. The radish greens I have here are ready to harvest today, and the salad greens I'm actually going to give an extra couple days. So what exactly do you need to get started growing microgreens at home? The first thing you need, of course, is seeds, and I like getting seeds from True Leaf Market. They've always been very reliable, and they have a huge variety of different greens that you can grow, from broccoli to salad greens, kohlrabi, so you can really sort through their catalog and take your pick. If you're new to growing microgreens, I definitely suggest radish, basic salad kits are great, kale or kohlrabi are awesome options as well. So for my growing medium, I definitely prefer using potting soil, and I'm using a pro mix blended with fertilizer, which is not completely necessary. You do not need to fertilize your microgreens, but I did some side-by-side testing and I really like the results of the fertilized ones better. However, microgreen seeds do have enough nutrition to take them through the stages of growth where you would be harvesting anyways. So I'm just using a basic Pro Mix soil along with a 4-4-4 fertilizer, but you can use black gold potting mix or another potting mix of your choice. And it's also worth noting that if you're using a potting mix that already has nutrients in it, you don't really need to add additional fertilizer anyways. You can also use a non-soil medium to grow your microgreens. So there are a few options. You can use bamboo or hemp mats, and they are pretty good because you don't have to deal with soil. However, I find that they dry out very quickly, and it's actually a little bit more challenging to grow microgreens this way as opposed to using soil. So if you're just getting started, I would recommend trying soil, but you can do some side-by-side tests and experiment with what you like best. Next, you're going to need your microgreen trays. So I really like the ones from Bootstrap Farmer. They are 5x5 trays, and they come with whole versions and non-whole versions. These are great because not everybody wants to grow a huge tray of microgreens. If you're just growing for your family, this is a perfect size, and you can grow different varieties in different trays. I'll leave a link to them below. And the other trays that I really like are just from Amazon. These are actually sprout trays, but they work really well for microgreens as well. And the reason that you use a tray with holes and one without holes is because as the microgreens progress, you're going to be watering them from the bottom. So that way you can just lift, water them from the bottom, and all is good. The other thing that you will need is a spray bottle. It does not have to be a fine mist sprayer, though I do prefer that. You'll also need some sort of light source, so a grow light is great in the winter. If you have a nice south-facing window, you can grow your microgreens that way as well. We are growing our microgreens inside, underneath the grow light. We're using the same grow light that we use for our seedlings. I will leave a link to everything below, so if you're interested in having a setup like this, I'll also leave a link to a video on where you can build your own seed starting setup, which is great for growing microgreens as well. And you will also need weights, so weighting the microgreens helps to simulate them being underground. And you don't need to purchase any fancy weights. I'm using rocks from the beach and a brick to weight my microgreens down. And finally, you're gonna need a sharp knife or scissors to harvest your microgreens. So let's go back 11 days to when we planted these microgreens and kind of go through the whole process together. All right, so I have here my 3 gallons of pre-moistened potting soil, and I'm mixing in about a half a cup of my 4-4-4 fertilizer. And again, you can use any potting mix that you would like, or even make your own growing medium with peat moss or coco coir. Then you can begin adding the soil to your trays that have holes in the bottom, being careful not to compress the soil too firmly. Next, you're going to want to plant your seeds into the potting soil. And the amount of seeds that you use will depend on the type of microgreen that you're growing. It's best to follow the instructions on the seed packet. I really like to eyeball it. Be sure that you're not sowing the seeds too thick, and be sure that you're not sowing them too sparse. You want those microgreens to have enough support when they're growing that they can kind of lean on each other, but you do want there to be enough ventilation between the greens to help prevent mold as well. Next, you can give your seeds a good spraying with water, and you don't want them to be completely soaked, but you do need them moist enough for germination. After spraying, you can stack your trays of microgreens and put the weight on top. You can stack the trays all together or put them separately with their own individual weights. The microgreens do not need to be exposed to light during this time. I have them on the shelf here underneath the light, but the light is not on. So you do not need to expose them to light yet. This is just the germination process, and they are fine in the dark. Now, checking on them at the 24-hour mark is optional, but I do like to take a peek sometimes, especially when it's really dry, just in case they need an extra misting. So this is at the 48-hour mark, and as you can see, there is some germination starting to happen, as well as some root hairs popping up, but I'm going to keep these stacked in the dark after giving them another misting of water. Okay, so now we are uncovering day 3, and microgreens never really look great at this point. They're always pretty straggly and yellow, but I am ready to expose these to light. The grow light will be on for 12 hours on and 12 hours off. And the microgreens in this green tray, I'm actually going to give them an extra day before exposing them to any light. And this is the point where some people like to do a blackout period. And what that is flipping one of the trays over to encourage the greens to stretch towards the light. I don't typically do this, but I am going to do it with one of the trays just so you can kind of see what it does. So this is day 4, and as you can see, the microgreens are turning green, except for the ones that were under that blackout dome, which I'm now removing, and you can kind of see that they have stretched a little bit taller. And our microgreens in the green tray are looking a little bit sad, but that is expected right now, and now I'm going to expose these to the light. Now we are at day 5 and things look pretty good. They're growing as expected, maybe a little bit slow just because it's below freezing outside and very dry in our grow space. But I'm going to be bottom watering every day, checking the weight of the microgreens if they feel light and need water, just giving them water for the next few days to let them grow. Alright, so we are 11 days after planting now, and the radish microgreens are ready to harvest. Alright, so it's 11 days later, as you can see, and the radish greens are ready to harvest, but the salad greens do need a couple more days. And full disclosure, it is below freezing here in Connecticut, and our fancy grow space, which is our basement, even though it's heated, it is very dry, so these greens are not growing as quickly as they would be if it were the middle of summer or very humid. I also recommend that you have some sort of fan or ventilation for your microgreens. And this is very important because not only does it help with the strength of the greens, but it also helps to prevent mold. It is very common to mix up root hairs and mold. Root hairs are completely normal. Those are those little white spiky hairs that pop up in the beginning stage. So how do you know when to harvest your microgreens? Well, the easiest way to tell is to check for your true leaves growing. As soon as you see true leaves growing between those cotyledons, that's when you know they're ready to harvest. The other thing, you want to make sure that they are tall enough, about 2 to 3 inches tall, and also just take a taste test, taste your greens throughout the process, and get to know when they're ready to harvest that way. Alright, so like I said, the salad greens need a few more days to perk up and show those true leaves, but the radish are ready to go, so I'm going to show you how to harvest them. So you always want to harvest with clean hands and a clean pair of scissors or a sharp knife. Alright, so that's it. perfectly harvested radish microgreens. These are so good. They taste great on salads, but you can really put them on anything. Mix them into smoothies, put them on tacos or pizza. It's a great way to get veggies in with a small amount of greens. And the best way that I have found to store microgreens is to keep them dry. So don't wash them until right before you're gonna eat them, but keep them dry and put them in an airtight container just on top of a paper towel. And I personally like to consume them within 3 to 5 days because I like them fresh and I harvest as I go. So if you have any experience growing microgreens, let me know in the comments below what kind of greens you like to grow, and if you learned anything new today, or if you have anything to share. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.